Hello, everyone. Today, our plant is going to be comfrey. Have people heard of that plant, comfrey? Cool. It's a very common plant in lots of people's gardens who are interested in perennial gardening. So lots of people who are interested in putting plants in their garden that will come back year after year. Comfrey is a very common one. And I'm going to bring up our whiteboard so that I can type the Latin name. And it's Symphytum officinale. It has a few different names, but this is one that I think is the most commonly seen. And specifically today, I'm going to talk for our purposes of what we want to have in our gardens. I want to talk about a specific variety that's a hybrid that has been developed called Bocking 14. So Bocking 14 is a hybrid for gardening purposes that is considered a sterile variety. And why is that important? It's important because comfrey in the wild comfrey, when it sets seed from its flowers, the seeds spread really, really quickly and really rapidly, and the plant takes over in a way in which sometimes it takes over wild spaces and becomes, well, I guess people use the word invasive. I don't like the word invasive. I try to use other words. But when you have a plant that's very powerful and a plant that sets a lot of seed that other creatures eat and spread to other places, sometimes that plant gets out of control and its power takes over other plants. So this particular variety, the Bocking 14 variety, is one that was developed by plant breeders that doesn't set seed at all. And the way that you grow new plants is specifically through the root. So I'm going to show you a picture of comfrey in my garden as of about an hour ago. So this is my comfrey plant. It's early spring here. Spring just started, and you can see how, well, maybe it's harder for you to see, but this plant is quite large already. It's very healthy. It's very happy in my pretty unhealthy, sandy soil that is pretty hard to grow a lot of things in. This plant does a really great job of finding its own resources and holding on to water in its roots, through its roots, and in its leaves. It has really nice, thick, hardy, by the end of its, when it gets to maturity during the year, they're quite large, which, and they hold a lot of moisture. I see there's something in the chat. Is it a bush, a flower, or a tree? It is, it's considered an herbaceous perennial, which means that it is planted once and it grows for years, year after year after year, and it gets larger and takes over more space. So it becomes a little bit bushy throughout the growing season, but then in the winter time, all of the leaves that are above ground die back, they die to the ground, and the root stays alive, but everything above ground is dead. So it's not a bush or a shrub in the way that many of our plants are. It's just considered a normal herbaceous plant. And when you hear the word herbaceous, it means exactly that it grows throughout the season, then it dies back to the ground in the wintertime. I will show you another photo of what this plant looks like. This is the same plant in my garden in the same exact place, but in the middle of July or the end of July. So like the highest point of the season last year is right here. So this is the first year that I planted this comfrey plant, and it started from, if you can all see me, it started in a pot that was maybe 3 inches large. The pot was probably about 3 inches, and the plant itself was maybe 3 inches tall. Very, very tiny. I put it in the ground last year probably in April, around this time. And by the middle of July or the end of July, it was really, really large.
Make it big so you can see it.
So that just shows you what can happen in one season. And already it's as big in my yard now as it is the first picture that I showed you, which shows that it's already growing really well and taking over its space. So I'm going to show you a botanical drawing. I'll show you a picture of the roots first, so we can talk a little bit about the roots and why it's such a powerful plant in the garden. And do you have your hand up, Elijah? What's your question?
What plant are we learning about? I just got in.
This is comfrey. So I'll share the whiteboard so you can see real quick again. The name, Comfrey, Symphytum officinale, and we're talking specifically about a hybrid for gardens called the Bocking 14. So I am going to show you a picture of the roots of comfrey. So this is like someone who dug up these roots for either to plant them in another place or to use them for herbal medicine purposes, because they do have herbal applications, and I'll get to that later in our class today. So these roots are they're like really sturdy. They grow really deep. They're referred to as tap roots, and tap roots they dig down. They're really, really hardy. They dig down in the soil. They break up any soil that is compacted, soil that's really hard and hard for other roots to grow down through. And they also help to mine nutrients. They bring nutrients up from lower down in the soil where other roots can't reach them, and they bring them up to the higher levels of the soil surface while they're doing that. And they also store those nutrients in their leaves, which is one of the reasons why people love comfrey so much, because they refer to comfrey as a green manure or a living fertilizer. I'm going to show you a botanical drawing photo. Oh, let me see. It looks like we have something in the chat. Oh, Jaden, you want to give me some information?
Yes, we use comfrey for everything. You can eat it like the part. You can do if you have like bruises or scratches like plantain. You can do a lot with it. You can regrow it. You can make medicine out of it. Comfrey is actually like a good thing that's invasive. It helps it's kind of like a good partner for most plants. The flowers help pollinate for bees and other plants. And the way you can tell that's comfrey is that it has these small purple flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can find a picture of them.
Yeah, I'll share one.
Okay, thank you.
Like this?
Yep, that's exactly it.
Yeah. So that's great. I'm glad that you know. A lot of people really love comfrey. It's a very special plant, and that was really great information. So we'll make a list of some of those things, and you can help me to go down that list again throughout this class. That was really awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So like what Jaden said, where we just ended off with the flowers are they're beautiful, and they hang off the plant like this in these little like these little clusters. Sometimes they're this bright purple. This is my plant from my garden that same time, probably mid-July or late July last year. And this is just one of the many creatures that is a beneficial insect that is attracted by this plant and that gets pollen from the flowers. It's a really, really wonderful pollinator plant. Attracts many insects that we love to have, many creatures that we love to have in our spaces, and it's just a really nice plant to kind of offer to the natural world, to others that are not human in our environment. And it's really beautiful when you go outside and you see all of the many different critters, many different flying creatures that are all over the comfrey plant. This is in my front yard, and my front yard has a ton of different medicinal plants that are also really great for pollinators. So it's really fun to go out and see who I can identify and the different types of insects that we have out there all throughout the season. So there's a question, how do you cook comfrey? And then a comment, it kind of looks like a mint plant. So how do you cook comfrey? It seems like Jaden might eat it. I personally do not eat comfrey, but I do make herbal medicine with it. So there are some people in the scientific community and people in the herbal community who have claimed that certain varieties of comfrey, there are many comfrey species, and it's hard to tell them apart just from with your naked eye. There are some species of comfrey, the ones that go wild through spreading their own seed, that some people have said can cause some liver damage in people, especially people who already have problems with their liver. So it's important when I'm teaching you all, especially as young people, when I'm teaching you about these plants, that I be really, really careful with the kinds of information that I'm giving you. And I'm not sure that I want to tell anybody to eat comfrey, because I personally don't eat it, and there are some people who think that it could be bad for you. There are other people who say that it is totally fine for you, and that is wrong information. But I think that it's pretty important that we do our own research and that we not consume things that we don't have a lot of information about. However, in its herbal applications used externally, so used on your skin and not taken in your mouth, this is a really, really fantastic plant for humans. That is, some people refer to it as its common names, some of its common names besides comfrey, which most people just call it comfrey. Some people call it boneset, but there are a lot of different plants, common name plants, that are referred to as boneset, because there are lots of different plants that do similar things to what I'm about to tell you. So comfrey is really great at healing wounds, from healing wounds topically, but like also going down a little bit deeper into your tissues and healing when you have muscle problems, muscle issues. So it's referred to as boneset because it has really great healing properties for bruises and even broken bones, sprains, fractures, strains. itchy, like it itches and bug bites, and like poison ivy, like we spoke about. Jaden mentioned that there are things about it that are similar to the plant plantain, which was the first plant that I covered in this Ecokids class a couple weeks ago. So plantain and comfrey are often used together, even when we're making salves. And there is one of the reasons that comfrey is so great in this particular way at healing wounds on our skin from externally is because of this particular compound called allantoin. And that chemical is anti-inflammatory, so it helps for swelling to go down, and it also helps with generating new cells. It's used in this particular chemical is used in a lot of different things that we like commonly find as cosmetics in drugstores. So allantoin is found in various moisturizing lotions, shampoos and conditioners. It's found in toothpaste and mouthwash and things like that. And it's specifically for its like moisturizing and healing and anti-inflammatory properties. So it's a pretty awesome chemical, and it's found in comfrey in pretty large quantities, in addition to a lot of other. Comfrey is very, very complex. Plants are very complex, and they have lots of different chemicals throughout them. And all of these chemicals, all of these compounds contribute to it being a really super awesome plant. But that's just one of the main ones that people often talk about when they're talking about comfrey. And so Elliot said it kind of looks like a mint plant, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the family that comfrey is in. It is in the Boraginaceae family, so I guess I can type that also while we're using this whiteboard. So the Boraginaceae family is a family that includes 2,000 different species. And one of the other ones that's the most commonly known that we might talk about in this class is called borage. Is somebody else using my whiteboard? If so, you guys are smarter than I am. Eliana has a question. I'm unmuting you. Eliana, you have a question? Oh, I'm trying to unmute you. Can you try to unmute yourself? There you go.
I accidentally pressed raise hand, I think.
Oh, you don't have a question? Okay, cool. Does anybody else have a question? Okay. I'm gonna show you a botanical drawing of comfrey, and then we can look. Because I just think that these are beautiful, and I want to encourage you all, as you're learning about plants throughout this time, and as you get older and are learning about plants. Elijah, is that you? Did you figure out how to draw on this? Great. So as you are learning about plants, I think it's a really good idea to draw them. It'll be helpful. It's a really great creative activity. It'll be helpful for you to study all of the parts of the plant. So if you see, for example, like this looks kind of like mint plant It looks like it might have a square stem. You get closer to it and you examine the stem more closely, and over time you learn that it is a little bit different than plants in the mint family. You learn about patterns, like we've been talking about, different patterns of the way that the leaves come on and off and that sort of thing. And like what the seeds look like and how the flowers hang and that sort of thing. And then you'll learn over time a little bit more about the different plant families and the specific plants, and you'll develop a relationship with them in a new way. Jaden, you have your hand up. I'm lowering your hand and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I actually figured out how to draw on it.
Oh, that was you?
Yeah, there's a editing button for us, so we can actually just do it ourselves.
Oh, I see. That's
Yeah,
good to know. Good to know.
Just found that.
Let's see here. Elijah, do you have a question? What's your question?
No, not a question. I was just saying I figured out it too.
Oh yeah, it seemed like both of you. Yeah, I could see by the mischievous look on your face that you had figured it out. So I wanted to show you a picture also of and explain one of the ways in which people use this on their skin externally is through what's referred to as a poultice. So I'll just write that word on our whiteboard and then I'll show you a photo. Poultice is what I'm going to be talking about. And a poultice is basically a very simple way of making an herbal medicine where you use the raw plant, so the fresh leaf plant, the fresh leaf part, and you can break it up either with like a mortar and pestle. Do people know what that is? Like a bowl with essentially like a stone or something that you can like grind the plant down into. So you can use a mortar and a pestle to make a poultice. People now, since we have electricity, often will use blenders or food processors or things like that. And they use the leaf and sometimes the root also. And they just make basically like a paste. So this is a photo of, you can see this mason jar in the back. So someone used the fresh leaf and put the various pieces, various like blended up leaf parts onto pieces of parchment paper. So these here are little, hey, can we stop drawing? I know it's really cool that you figured it out, but it's taking away from other people learning. So the poultice here, this green goop, can be put onto parchment paper, which then can be put into your freezer. So it can be like put away for later use, maybe in the winter time. If you accidentally hurt yourself and you don't have any of this leaf available fresh, you can just have it in your freezer. And this poultice just gets directly put onto your skin where you have a bruise or a bug bite or a muscle ache or pain or a sprained ankle or something like that. And it will help to aid in the healing process there. So it's important to know, obviously, but need to say, even if it sounds really obvious, if you hurt yourselves really badly, you should definitely go seek medical attention. Go to your doctor, go to an urgent care, go to an ER if something is really bad, and do what the doctor tells you. However, in addition to doing what the doctor tells you, you can use this plant to heal yourself even faster. So that's a lot of times what people do. If you break a bone, you should go and you should get it fixed at a hospital. But you can also use this poultice to help heal yourself faster in the process. And I think that's something that's really cool because our bodies are really, really great at healing themselves. And there are plants that can help to heal them even better and stronger and faster. So that's one of the things that a lot of people really like about this plant. But even if you're never going to use this plant for yourself, for human purposes, it's really great to have in your garden ecosystem. And I want to talk a little bit about how to grow it. It's super, super easy to grow from the root. This particular variety that I'm talking about, the Bocking 14, it doesn't have seeds, but the root, every little teeny tiny part of the root that I showed you in this picture before, you can pull up any part of the root from the ground, and I've planted as small as like a half an inch piece of the root. I've put into little pot or right, into the ground next to, wherever I want it to go in my garden. And that half-inch piece of root will make an entirely new plant. So this particular, these roots here that I'm showing you in this share could make probably, I would say, like 100 new plants, just from all these little pieces alone. And that's amazing. The power of plants and that ability for the different cells in these roots to be strong enough to just grow new plant material and to know what to do is really pretty wonderful. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Or Jaden, is there anything else that you want to talk about that I haven't covered yet, or something you want to remind me of from your list from earlier? No? Any questions, any thoughts, even if they're not necessarily that related to what we're learning about today? Other plants you want me to cover this week? You can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand. Liv, you want to unmute yourself? Let's see if that works.
I went hiking yesterday.
What'd you say?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I went hiking yesterday and I saw a bunch of wintergreen. I always see wintergreen whenever I'm hiking. Cool.
Yeah. That is one that you mentioned earlier. I saw some in my woods yesterday too when I was walking. I'm gonna make an extra note to do that plant. Do you want to talk about it a little bit now, or did you just want to remind me you want to talk about it in another class?
Just to remind you.
Okay, cool. I see in the chat, Elliot said mint. Yeah, I'll do a particular variety of mint that's my favorite, and then we can talk about other different kinds. Jaden, is your hand up?
Elena actually just asked me how to write, and I just wanted to let her know that all you have to do is there's an edit button on like the home screen. So I gotta do it just that to get it to work.
On the whiteboard? Here, let's share the whiteboard, and then y'all can have a little free-for-all for a minute and figure it out. Just don't write any bad words or anything weird. So who has figured out the this drawing capability?
How do you do it?
There's just another button.
I mean, I know how I can do it, but I'm not sure how you all can do it. It's through, there's an edit function, I think, is what Jaden said.
Yeah, just a button. There's just a button. Easy. Like at the left, if you click on it, you get like where you can talk, unmute yourself. There's wait, above the mute button, the unmute, right above that, there's like a button with a drawing, kind of like a marker, and we can just do it. It's there. It's simple.
We'll figure it out. Oh, there's an arrow. There's a bunch of little arrows. You can do a whole bunch of different things. And then I can come in and I can erase it all. Ha-ha!
I can erase mine too.
Ha-ha!
Except you just
Everything's
you
going.
erase.
Ha-ha! Elijah, looks like your hand's up. There you go.
Can we learn about lavender one time?
Definitely. I'll add that to my list. And I have some other ones. Liv has mentioned Juneberry, which I love. And I have a little list going. And, you know, I have like hundreds and hundreds of favorite plants that I will happily share with you at any given moment. Juneberry. Anybody else have ideas? Or things they have heard of, but they don't really know much about? All right. I'm happy to see you all today. I'm happy that we learned some new things and our drawing capabilities here. They're amazing. And maybe I'll try to figure out how we can use that collaborative process a little bit more. Oh, we have some stuff in the chat here. Let me see. Chocolate mint. Yeah, that's the one I was going to talk about. It's one of my very favorites. And what is my favorite plant? I can't answer that question. That's like the hardest question anyone could ever ask me. I love so many different plants. I love so many different mushrooms. I love so many different insects and creatures. It's really, really hard for me to answer that question. And it kind of depends on the day. Like every morning I go out, I wake up and I make a cup of tea and I go out and I water my garden right now. It's like part of my morning, it's my morning routine right when I wake up. And pretty much every day there's a new plant that catches my attention that's like, hey, look at what I did yesterday. Look at how pretty I am today. Like, pay attention to me. And I love that. Almost every day I get to like see some new beautiful thing that one of the plants has done like overnight or within the last 24 hours. And that's one of the reasons why I love gardening so much, because the plants are constantly growing and constantly changing, and there's always something new to learn and observe, and you know, a new creature to meet, and that sort of thing. This morning I can show you a couple pictures from this morning if you want me to. I'm gonna silly.
Oh my! Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, my favorite plant is actually catnip. Believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
Even I get hype. Yeah, even I get hyper over it.
Oh really? That's interesting.
I'm like a cat meow. It
generally calms people down. It calms humans down, and it makes cats crazy. Usually, I love. I
get hyper over it.
That's funny. I want to show you. I'm going to show some pictures from yesterday, just so you can see how like nerdy I am and how much I do with plants every day. So one of the plants I want to talk to you all about. One of the plants I want to talk to you all about is sassafras. It's one of my favorites. And this is just, this is a sassafras tree that's about to flower. So this little tiny thing here is a flower that's opening, and it's a super, it's like most people would miss it. It's really small. It's not very, you know, pretty by conventional standards. But the whole woods, there's a few hundred acres of woods behind my house that are just full of these sassafras trees right now, and they're opening their flowers. And I was super excited by that yesterday. So I took this picture up close. And then this morning, saw this super cool, I found some plants that I'd never seen before. And this morning, I was watering my garden, and I found this crazy looking thing, which I'm totally going to talk about more during Sorry, it's not coming into focus because my internet is working really hard right now. This crazy looking thing, which will come into focus, I hope, in a second, that is on a cedar tree or a juniper tree in front of my house. And hopefully it will come into focus. This is actually a fungus that's growing on a tree in front of my house. And I'm going to talk to you in more detail about it when we talk about Juneberries, which is probably confusing. Why would I talk about it when we talk about Juneberries? But I assure you there is a reason. And me finding this morning in my front yard gave me an indication that I'm going to have to deal with something later in the season that has to do with my Juneberries because of this particular weird looking thing I found on a juniper tree. So yeah, the plant and fungus world is totally wild. I'm not sure why that picture isn't coming into focus, but you'll see it. I'll show it to you again when we talk about Juneberries. So yeah, I like get super nerdy about this stuff all day, every day. And that's why I'm doing this class, because I need to share my information with somebody. And I'm glad that at least a few of you care. I'm really happy to do this with you every day. And I see mushrooms. Elliot wants mushrooms. Yeah, I will definitely be talking more about some mushroom species. So you can be sure of that. I'm going to call it for the day. It's been really nice seeing your faces. And I will see you tomorrow at the same time. All right. See you later. Have a good day.